Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. For this tutorial, this is my thank you to everyone for 50,000 subscribers. That's awesome. Never thought that would happen. But for this cake, I'm going to do a geometric chocolate mold on the bottom and some geometric shapes on the top. And to offset the boldness of this design, I added some white flowers. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and use this really cool origami geometric plastic mold that I found online, and I will attach a link where you can purchase this one and other ones that are slightly different design, but they're all origami inspired on Amazon, and I will attach that in the link below. But what I did was I just used dark chocolate and I added some, you can't tell in this picture or in this part of the video that I added some black to it, some black oil-based food colorings that you can use with chocolate. As the chocolate cools and hardens and oxidizes, the color will come out. You'll get a lot more depth out of it. What I am doing is I am putting it into the mold using a tip or a bag. And that way you're kind of eliminating some of those air bubbles that you can get when you are just putting the chocolate on and just scraping it off. So I like to approach it that way, and then go ahead and tap it on your surface to bring any of the remaining air bubbles that inevitably get trapped in the chocolate to the back side of the chocolate, so that when you attach it to the mold or to the cake, you don't see any air bubbles. Very important with these shaped molds. And I'm just removing excess from around the sides. Now you'll want to go ahead and make sure that you leave a thin layer on the top there. You don't want to scrape it all the way down to the plastic, because they won't want to stick to your chocolate as well. And you could tell there, I don't know if you noticed, that this was my second attempt at attaching this chocolate to the cake because I didn't have my camera on. So this is go number 2. And I had left the chocolate to sit to cool down for about a good 15 minutes before I lifted it onto the cake. That way your chocolate is not just pouring out of your mold. You want it to set up so when you pick it up and hold it to the side, it's not dripping out. And just lift it up, attach it on there, and I'm using rubber bands to hold it in place while I set it in the freezer for a good 30 minutes. And I just went ahead and cleaned up the board at this point, just so I didn't have to do it later. That's all. And these cakes are already crumb coated with, well, actually it's a crumb coat and an all over coat of dark chocolate ganache. I just did that ahead of time because otherwise my videos get very long. And I'm just using gold luster dust with a fluffy brush. This is a cake decorating or cake dedicated fluffy makeup brush. I've never used it on anything else. And you just apply it you're just kind of buffing it on your surface. I had this in the refrigerator before I did this. I didn't want it to be too cold because condensation can cause an issue when you are dealing with luster dust and painting on cakes. So if you can, stick with leaving it in the refrigerator and not the freezer. And for this tier of the cake, it worked great. Now the top tier, you'll see it was 100% humidity this day when I did this, of course. So I had a lot of sweating with this chocolate. Now if you're not dealing with 100% humidity and you can do this in a cool, dry area is preferred. But truth be told, my husband didn't want me to turn on the air, so I didn't, and I had to deal with that. But isn't that pretty? That luster that you get on that? Now go ahead and set that in your refrigerator. And the chocolate tier is in the freezer, and in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get my geometric shapes cut out for the top. Now that I am just using black fondant is all I'm using. I didn't add any CMC, no Tylose powder, which is the same thing, but called different things in different places. It's just fondant. And I rolled it out fairly thin because I didn't want it to weigh down and fall off or slip down on the cake. So this is probably only about 1/8 of an inch thick. I left it very thin. And I'm just doing some random shaped triangle shapes. They don't have to be uniform. You can if you want to make them uniform. If you have a cutter that is a perfect triangle, go ahead and use that. But I don't, I didn't this day. So I'm just doing this random in different sizes. And I kind of think that they fit together a little bit better that way. It's a little bit more abstract. It's a very modern design. And I wanted to add a little bit of abstract to this. And you know that your chocolate is ready when it has an opaque finish or look to that plastic. You can tell it is kind of pulled away from the chocolate. And I don't know if you can tell, when I released this, I released the Kraken. It flew off of here so fast. Actually, it doesn't show it there, but it in real life or real time, it seemed like it just exploded right off of the cake. And then I'm using a heated up knife. I just have a cup of hot water to the side there, and I'm just putting it in that hot water to slice off that chocolate off of the top without cracking it. And in the back, I did notice with these molds that you do have a seam in the back, because most of my cakes, well, if you had a cake that was exactly the same diameter, distance around as the length of the mold, that would be fine. But since I didn't want to cut it down because who knows what other size of cake I'm going to use it on, I did have to deal with a seam in the back there. And I just filled it in with some chocolate, and I had made some extra pieces of triangle-shaped chocolate that I put in that second mold earlier, so that I had those to fill in, because I had a feeling that was going to happen. Now just go ahead and put that back in the refrigerator while you attach your decoration on the top tier. I just use a little piping jar on the back. And when you're dealing with a luster dust coated cake, just be careful not to touch it where the luster dust is, because it will rub off on your fingers and you'll leave marks in your finish. But you can go back in and kind of buff that out with some more luster dust and that the fluffy brush, if that does happen. I would suggest getting a smaller fluffy brush if you do this design, because it's going to be harder to keep it off of the black fondant pieces. And just piece it together. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to keep your spaces somewhat uniformly, approximately the same. You don't want big gaping holes or places where the pieces are too close together. Now, since there is chocolate on here, I am marking out where my straws are going to go to support that top tier. But you're going to need to kind of cut out that layer of chocolate where you want your straws to go, or your skewers, or whatever it is that you're going to use to tier your cake up. Now, honestly, since this is a 6-inch tier or layer with tier, I keep saying tier, and there's a 4-inch going on top, it probably honestly didn't need a whole lot of support. Since you have that chocolate on there, it probably would have supported it just fine, but I wanted to show you that this is what you typically would do. Stick your straws in there and then go ahead and cut off the extra off of the top. I just put a little bit of chocolate on top to get my top tier to stick. Make sure that you add some on the tops of those straws, because that's what's going to make sure that it's not going to move around once you've attached it on there. And since this is chilled, I am loosening it up with a spatula, and I'm putting my fingers on the fondant pieces to lift it up, just for a little extra support on the back side. Make sure you're not touching that gold part. Now go ahead and put it to the side or put it in your refrigerator while you are getting your flowers ready. I'm just using silk flowers, and I'm elongating the stems with some floral wire and some floral tape, just to have a little bit more length to work with, because I wanted the flowers to kind of stick out from the side of the cake, almost in kind of a triangular shape, to kind of mimic the triangles that are kind of the theme on this cake. But I wanted them to have some movement off to the side, and I just used a toothpick to go ahead and drill a hole in there to stick the flower in, because you're not going to be able to get it very easily into that very thin layer of chocolate on the top. Now don't worry, when your cake comes to room temperature, your chocolate will soften up, so you don't have to worry about cutting that so much. Those triangular shaped pieces might pop off as you cut it, but that's okay, because you have the ganache underneath also, so just be aware of that. And just kind of arrange these how you want, but like I said, I wanted it to kind of have a slightly triangular shape to it. Slightly. Wasn't quite as much as I wanted, because I didn't have as much length on those, the leaves, but that's okay. And then I just attached my 50K on the bottom with chocolate. And I did just, these are made just out of wood painted in edible paint. Since they're attached with chocolate, I thought that would be okay. So there you go, guys. Again, thank you so much for 50,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys more than you will ever know. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.